Hey everyone, and welcome back to our DC Films Podcast, Episode 2, where we discuss all things going on in the DCEU. And for this episode, we aren't talking about any particular news subjects in particular. We're just going to be talking about our thoughts and feelings on, Henry Cavill and his portrayal of Superman in the DCEU and why we think he matters so much to the DCEU. And joining me today are a couple people who you heard in last week's episode. So here they are back today. Do you guys want to reintroduce yourselves to the listeners?
Hey,
no, we don't want to. Sorry. Go ahead, Lily.
Okay, she's gonna interrupt me. Lily from Lily Loves Comics on Tumblr.
And I am Katie, and I'm Story Advocate.
All right, it's good to have you guys back in this early time in the morning, at least for a couple of us.
No, we're good.
All right, so again, there's no set structure to this conversation, so we'll just kind of talk about our thoughts and feelings on Henry's Superman and kind of just go from there. So for me, my first exposure to him was in Man of Steel, and for me, I've been a lifelong Superman fan, and when I first saw Man of Steel, I was already super excited as a Superman fan, but I walked out of that movie and I was so blown away by the type of Superman that we got from Zack and Henry, in that he's not like your typical kind of Boy Scout, here to save the day, very campy kind of Superman that we had gotten in previous incarnations. That he was a very, human version of the character, in that he has flaws and he's not just there's so much to this version of Clark that for me, there's so much that I resonated with him, because he's here, he's doing his best to do the right thing, but the world isn't so easily accepting of him. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about this interpretation, is that no matter how hard he's been trying to do the right thing and save as many people as he can, there's he faces so much backlash because people see him as an alien and as a potential threat, and they don't see the good he's doing as just him doing good. They think he has some ulterior motive, and that I think some people think, this world's so dark and gritty and that it's all unnecessary. But I think it shows how our world would truly react to seeing a god-like being of his stature. Whether he's doing the right thing or not, there's going to be a lot of backlash. So I applaud Zack and Henry for giving us a version of Superman that is, I think, very realistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with all of that. Lily, I want to give you the option to go next, because if you don't, I'm going to talk a lot.
Well, for me, I think my first introduction was with the animated series, and I really didn't care for Superman until Man of Steel. I thought I really enjoyed it because, like he said, he's relatable to me. I know what it's like to feel like an outcast. Mm-hmm. So I thought it's important for me to I like characters that I can relate to. So for me, it was amazing, and I really enjoyed his portrayal and everything.
Yep, I quite agree. I grew up with Christopher Reeve's Superman, and I saw it quite a few times, I remember, as a kid. It was just kind of there, but it was weird. The older I got, the more I grew out of it, and I didn't go back. Mm-hmm. I always loved Christopher Reeve, but, Superman. I was, it just seemed like a childhood thing that I didn't really need as I got older. Batman was my jam. Mm-hmm. And it was weird, because, we watched all the Dark Knight movies, and my husband's like, oh, we should go see that Superman one. And I'm like, whatever. Sure, sounds like a night out, And then I come out, and I'm like, holy crap. I for years now, the realistic part of my brain has been noting the fact that superheroes typically, it's kind of created for them the plot or the circumstances are created for them to come out on top. The script works in a certain way that it works for them and kind of ignores some of the other realistic ideas, or you're right, the real world setting where everything's not so simple, and or you can't save everyone and be everywhere at once, but it's always this is fiction, and that's just what it is. It can't be real. That's fine. And so I sit down in Man of Steel, and they give me this real 360-degree beautiful nuanced character, whose superpowers come with pain and discomfort and realistic applications, and it just was kind of mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. I was like, holy crap, I didn't think anybody would ever actually do that. Like, I didn't think they'd ever actually go there. This is awesome. And Henry's Superman is so beautiful because he's I don't know how to say it, but he's understated. Like, Henry has said that his Superman is about trying to be as small as possible in this world. He's trying to get as little notice. And that really, really connected with me, the idea that of course he would. He wouldn't be like the bumbler who's just, so doofy in real life that he gets a huge amount of attention, but then people think, well, there's no way he could be Superman because look what a klutz he is. I mean, that's a fair interpretation, but that would be drawing attention to himself, huge amounts of attention to himself. So instead, he's just this huge guy with powers trying to be as small as possible and get as little notice. And everything about the way Henry plays him goes in that direction. And I don't know, Henry does such a beautiful job interpreting him, and I really credit Zach for recognizing it, like, oh, this guy could do this well. There's just so much to him, and yet it's all so contained that often he gets accused of being wooden or not having much expression or yada yada yada. There's always complainers, and there's always people who don't really get his style, which happens with everybody. But like everything about the way he plays that part really connects with me. It was like, holy cow, I came out like a bona fide Superman like supporter and fan just through his version. It's a thing of beauty. It's really an amazing thing, and I cannot get enough of it. I'm already like, so, can we have Justice League now? Can you bring him back? Because I really miss him, and I can't have him gone, It kills me. This is fictional. He's not really here, but I'm like, I can't have him dead. So can you just undo that, please? I need him around. I need his inspiration. I need his example. Come on, man, give it back. So it's just, I can't believe how invested I am, but I really, really am. It's a thing of beauty. He's just, I don't know. He speaks to me like no other Superman ever really has. So, yeah.
I never thought I'd be invested in a Superman like I am now. Like, that's amazing. I love Henry and his portrayal of Superman. Just, wow.
I know. We're running out of words. I feel lame, but it's just beautiful.
It's funny because, like, for me, I grew up, oddly enough, what made me a Superman fan was the release of Superman Returns, because up until that point, like, I kind of knew who Superman was. I didn't I watched the Justice League animated show, and I'm like, okay, I this guy in a red cape flying around, and like I dressed as him for Halloween one year, and I'm like, well, first of all, it wasn't even my choice. My mom just bought me a costume. Was like, here, this is your costume. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
So this is before I knew who Superman was, and this I watched Superman Returns, and up until then, I was like, oh, so it's connected to the older movies. So I watched the older movies, and of course, like, I loved those movies for what they were, and like Christopher Reeve, like, without a doubt, is a great Superman.
Oh yeah, and that's
one thing that, like, I feel like a lot of fans, or at least Christopher Reeve purists, seem to think that, like, just because we love Henry, it seems to think that we don't get why Christopher Reeve was such a great Superman, that we're like discrediting him. It's like, no, that's not it at all. Like, we recognize that he was a great Superman, but he was a great Superman for his era. Like, to have that bumbling, kind of goofy, like, here to save the cat out of a tree kind of Superman, that was good for the times. Because
and he pulled that off beautifully. He's got amazing physical comedy. Sorry, go ahead.
Especially like post-Vietnam War and like all that stuff going on at that time, you needed to have that kind of like, that hopeful campiness to a superhero, that you have someone that everyone can look up to. And with Henry's Superman, like, again, I grew up watching the Reeve films and Smallville, which is very much like the Reeve films in terms of who that version of Clark is. Yeah, but also, so I went into Man of Steel, obviously, with, Smallville and all the animated stuff and Christopher Reeve in my head. But even then, I was able to take out all of that and leave it at the door and see this version of Clark for what Zach and Henry were trying to show us. And for me, and again, it's like, as much as I love those interpretations of Superman from the past, I see this Superman as the Superman of the modern day, and as one that, again, would very much fit into our realistic world. In that,
yes,
that like the world, especially looking at the way the world is right now, between government and politics, and like just all the stuff going on, the world would probably hate Superman the way they do in Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel, and that just some people don't get that, and some people who think just like, oh, he's Superman, everyone would know he's here to do the right thing. Would they? I
mean, no, they would not.
Yeah,
they would act exactly how the world reacted in the films. I couldn't believe how real that was.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lily.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you guys. They'd have trouble understanding him or why he's here or why he's trying to help. But a lot of people have problems.
Oh yeah,
understanding that process or whatever.
They'd have issues with the fact that he was an alien. They'd have issues with the fact that he's got powers other people don't have. What's he going to do with them? You know, they'd have issues with his power in itself. They would have issues all over the place. I cannot imagine this world being like, yeah, sure, totally cool. Look, we got a hero, you know? Yep. We don't put faith in other beings or the people that easily, you know?
Especially if
there's
they're not
no
from
way.
our world.
Yep.
You know, it's just...
Yep.
Yeah, and the fact that we even deal with like issues like immigration and racism, the fact like, why?
Yes.
Like if we can't even accept people from our own world, what makes you think we're gonna accept a superpower being from another world? You know?
Exactly. Oh no, we'd freak right out. You know.
Like as much as we want to believe that there is good in the world, and obviously there is, but like
there is.
But I think again, Zach has shown us a realistic interpretation of what it would be like if this godlike being came down to our world and how our world would react to that. And you can call it gritty or dark or whatever, but that's more or less how the world would really react in those situations. I mean, because again, in the Reeve films, it's just everything's like very cut and dry. Like he came to this earth, he was raised to do good, and then he comes out of Superman, and there's no real pushback from the public. Everyone's like, "Oh, that's cool!" Like
they're all people. Like, "Awesome!" You know, totally cool. Do your thing, buddy. You know, yeah. I mean, it's a great idea. It's a lovely fiction, but it's not real.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like we all want to like hope that like, oh, we would automatically assume he's a good guy and then not criticize him or whatever. But again, that's not reality. Even though we're talking about a fictional character, but like if he were a realistic character, or in our world, again, we wouldn't accept him for the way he was, you know. And that's where like, like it's just it sucks because like I'm still a big fan of the Reeve movies, but some of those fans just do not want to get out of that era and think that Zack had to go back to that area and basically recreate that Superman. But that's not what a lot of the audience wanted, and that's why that's why ultimately Superman Returns failed as a movie, because it was just a love letter to the Reeve movies. And I don't hate the movie. I thought it was fine. Like, and it was my first real introduction to that character. But it's just, when you say, oh, we want the Christopher Reeve kind of Superman back, well, you got that, and it didn't work. So
so obviously there's something wrong here. You know, obviously there's some kind of disconnect. So why not try a new and real way? And I mean, as a fan fiction author, you realize that every version of a story that gets redone at some point is basically just fan fiction. It's somebody else's interpretation of that, or their new take on it, you know, and they'll spin it a little bit or make it, you know, something else, or do something else with it. And it doesn't mean that it's invalid immediately. It means that, you know, it is their particular take. You don't have to love it. That's okay. You know, we all have our different styles and our different tastes and our different likes and dislikes. That's fair. But you don't need to panic and feel like the one that you love is threatened if something new and different comes out. You know, that's okay. And you shouldn't go in expecting that. I think that's a big thing too. Okay, it's a Superman movie, so I'll get exactly the Superman that I picture and love. You know, humans are humans. If you give 50 authors a beginning and ask them to write an ending, they will give you 50 different endings. You know, we are all different. We all interpret things different. We write different stories. So walking in expecting it to be exactly how you want it will automatically disappoint you, because you're never going to get that unless you go out and do it. So,
and I totally get that. And that's why, like I was able to, because as a fan of pretty much every previous incarnation of the character, I walked into Man of Steel, you know, like, okay, like I'm gonna accept this Superman for what it is, no matter what. Like I'm not gonna like walk in like thinking this is gonna be a Christopher Reeve interpretation. Like this is gonna be this or that. Like I walked in, I'm like, let me see what Zach has to offer me, and then I walked out and I loved the movie. And so many people, of course, like we're on Tumblr and we've seen like the horrible side of fandom. And like some people love to just be like, the DCEU fans are just tricking themselves into thinking that was a good interpretation of Superman. It's like, no, because a lot of us, and both of you included, like this made you fans of the character. Whereas like before, he was very like for a lot of people thought he was kind of boring or like there wasn't very many layers to him. And like Man of Steel, for a lot of you and a lot of other people out there, that was their first real interpretation of the character that they were able to resonate with. So you can't invalidate someone else's opinion just because you don't agree.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Like you can not enjoy this. You know, it's art is art. You know, everyone's gonna see something different, but you can't say someone else's opinion is wrong for liking an interpretation of something that you happen to not like. You know, it's like I brought this up before. Like, especially and it sucks because as a fan of Smallville and the original Superman movies and stuff, occasionally like I'll be on YouTube and like looking at old videos of like clips and stuff from the shows and movies. And of course, he says like a billion comments saying like, "Oh, see, Zack Snyder, this is how you get Superman right by not making him emo and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, can't I just enjoy a Superman video without seeing so much hate for Zack and this interpretation of Superman? Like, people just like are so nostalgic to the point where like they don't want to get out of the past, and that's where like if you like even like certain movies these days are just so they pander so much to the nostalgic audience, and nostalgia isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it hinders from new stories being told, and that's what like with Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Like I really enjoyed that movie, but it's essentially a love letter to the original Star Wars.
It's A New Hope. You know, just
which isn't necessarily a bad
done
thing.
A little bit.
Yeah,
so.
and then again, it's not saying it's a bad thing, but there's nothing necessarily new other than the fact that you're having like a female as your lead compared to a male. But even then, it's not necessarily like something new because it's still a white female, so it's not like they're making all that diverse.
It's still the same basic story.
Yeah,
the reason I actually enjoy that one is because of the I don't know, the chemistry, the I don't know, the comedy between Ray and Finn is a beautiful thing.
I thought
so much awesome, you know. So I just watch it for that, you know.
Yeah.
But if I want, you know, Han and Luke and Leia and stuff like that, I'll go watch A New Hope because it's pretty much the same story. I mean, you're right, you know. So.
And again, I'm not saying that like nostalgia is a bad thing, but I think pandering to a nostalgic audience, again, it prevents new stories from being told and producers and stuff being afraid to tell new stories, and that's where like all the stuff going on with Justice League, and you're pandering to people who just want campy, fun jokes that like Marvel's done, and it's like that's not. I feel like you're reverting the superheroes movie back to what they were in the past, and you're not trying to push them forward. Like movies like Logan push the genre forward because while it is a superhero movie in essence, it's more than that. It's more like a modern day Western with superhero elements thrown into it, and like
and it's got some heavy drama in it.
It does,
you know?
and like what, and that's another thing too, that like people praise Logan for being so dark and serious, and yet they criticize the DCEU for being the same thing.
Yes, but annoyed me.
You know, people just it's wild how they can, I don't know, put on their little blinders and you know, feel like, well, this is, you know, entirely it, you know, and no, I don't have a double standard, you know. Maybe you need to self-check just a little bit because you just might. This is how racism and prejudice is born, is that you convince yourself that you don't actually have a double standard when you actually really do. So, I think Man of Steel, I cannot count the number of times I have seen people on Tumblr and the positivity tag and stuff like that talk about how the way Superman is depicted as truly an outsider, you know, and truly somebody different has made them feel recognized, you know, whether it's because of their race or because of mental illness or because of just feeling different than everybody else or not feeling connected with those around them. It doesn't matter. Like, I've seen so many people talk about how this version speaks to them because in the face of all of that, he still finds himself and his true identity, and he still is trying to do good and be good in the world. And that his strength gives other people strength, And so I need to send Zach yet another letter, and tell him thank you, because I don't think he knows how much his film has truly affected people who need it and are looking for it. And it has done such wonderful things because he chose to give us a nuanced look at a character with real consequences and real possibilities that, you are going to feel like an outsider. You look like a human, but you're not. Yeah. And everything about the way you experience the world is different than everyone around you. And then there's the constant fear of exposure. And what are they going to do? Are they going to, are they going to be okay with this, or are they not? And it's such a beautiful thing. And I guess I'm kind of confused at why people have issues with watching a hero struggle. I always thought that was part of the story. That always is part of the story. Yeah. A hero's just not a hero because they're born that way, or because they were raised by good parents. That's part of it. But they are a hero because they see the darker side, or they have the darker struggle, and they choose to do the right side. They choose to go for the good. It is not something that they just randomly fall into and naturally do. Or if it is, it doesn't last long. Like they have to have that struggle. They have to go through that darkness and come out the other side and really decide this is what they want to do in spite of hardship or difficulty or simply not getting recognition for it, and that's what I see in Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman. You simply can't have them not struggle and be a natural hero, or I guess you can. But if you do, you're going to lose my interest, because it's going to be a one-dimensional, superficial story, and I might watch it once, but I'll never come back, because it doesn't do much for me. It doesn't affect me deeper. So.
And that's why it's hard for me to look at, the Supergirl TV show, for example, and then bringing in their version of Superman, who, again, is like a love letter to the Christopher Reeve era, like the bumbling, aw shucks, Mr. White, like all that kind of campiness from the Reeve era, and they're bringing that in to please all the Reeve fans who didn't like Batman vs. Superman or Man of Steel. And it's like, again, you're reverting the character to a time when, for that era, it was okay to tell that kind of story, but in today's day and age, again, the world is going to be so accepting of a guy who's, who, first of all, above all else, is an alien. That's what the world's going to see. And just because he has these powers, it's not going to be so easy for him to do the right... I mean, it's just... Again, not just to say the same thing again and again. It's just... It's not... I think the Superman story is more interesting when you give it more layers, and that it's not easy just for him to just throw on the cape and say, I'm Superman, here I am to save you all. There's so much more to the story than that. And I think for a lot of people, too, especially, a lot of... One of the awesome things about being part of the DCEU fandom is that, I'm one of the few, straight white guys that I've come into contact with in the fandom. It's mostly... No, and I'm being serious. In that it's most people I talk to are women or people of color, and that's awesome.
That's amazing.
That's so many. Exactly. That's so many. It's such a wide group of people can come in and find something in this guy who's being portrayed by a straight white actor, but in this character who's this is an immigrant story, and that this is a guy dealing with subtle mental illness. He's struggling to find himself and to believe in doing the right thing, and there's so many layers from that. So many different people from all walks of life can come in and relate to. That's such an important thing, and because I feel like you don't find that in many heroes today.
No, you don't, and it's way better than just having a funny one-liner every other minute.
I can't obviously people love the Iron Man movies, but other than maybe the first one, I can't really relate to Iron Man in any real way, because he's kind of an asshole. and it's hard to find qualities in a guy who yes, he's trying to be a hero, but he's kind of putting comedy and trying to be funny even in terrible situations above being a good person. It's just it's hard.
There are people out there who do that, and those people who do that will identify with it. Yeah. But I agree that that's not everybody. and trying to just put that superficial layer on every Marvel hero. I'm not trying to bash Marvel, but it does a disservice to their character, because not everybody is just snappy one-liners and sarcasm all the time. That's like Tony Stark, inside and out. That's fair. That's who he is. But that's not everybody else. And so trying to just put that veneer on them to get the funny jokes doesn't really, it just does them a disservice. Their character's not being truly recognized and depicted the way it should be. So, yeah.
And again, it's so refreshing just to see a character like this version of Superman being able to be resonated with so many different people. And again, like, you don't get that with very many cinematic heroes today. I mean, granted, like, you can obviously, like, the Marvel movies are all successful and stuff, but like, whether like the DCEU movies or not, they're at least pushing to be more inclusive of the type of people they're trying to reach. Like, look at Suicide Squad and how much of a diverse cast that was.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I think it made so much money was that there were so many, like, it reached like the African American audience, and you had, I mean, granted, what's his name got killed off super early, but there was a Native American character in there. You had a Japanese character. You had characters from and you had like a Latin American character. Like, you have all these characters that just are so much more than just comic book characters to some people, that there's like, oh, that's a representation of kind of who I am, more or less. Like, some people like, that's why diversity, I think, is such an important thing. Like, and that's one of the reasons why I think Wonder Woman is so successful, to finally have a female-led, female-driven superhero story.
Yes.
There's so many.
Color.
Yeah, and that's why, again, looking at Man of Steel and this interpretation of Superman, to have a character who, again, is just, if you look at it face value, he's just another, white actor playing a white character. Zack made him more than that. And that he's
got so many layers, and he's so relatable.
Yep, much more than that.
Yeah, and it's just one of the many beautiful things I think is awesome about this interpretation of Superman, and that just I will always appreciate that. And again, whether people enjoy it or not, at least Zack is pushing to make this character more than just the typical Boy Scout he is written to be in so many interpretations.
Yes, he's making it very distinct, and I really appreciate that, which is why, honestly, no offense to other Supermans, and I adore Christopher Reeve, I'll never bash him, but this is my Superman because he is the only one that really works for me, He's the only one that speaks to me in a language that affects me enough to have me really support him, want to see more of him, like, be upset that he's dead. Like, otherwise I'd be like, it's just a comic book story, It just wouldn't matter that much. But this one, I'm like, what? No, you can't do that. I need him. And he's the only one that really affects me that deeply. I don't know. I love him. And I will say that I love Zack's approach to, okay, we're going to put this in a realistic world. So not only would society react differently and the way a real society would, and Man of Steel becomes more of a first contact story than any other Superman version has ever been. But also, let's go ahead and apply realistic consequences and ideas for his power. And that really spoke to me too, because when he's a kid and is seeing things, that nobody else would see, and is completely oversensitive to the world around him, and it feels too big, and all of that amazing stuff, that made sense to me. It was like, oh, of course he would do that. Of course he doesn't just get born, come here, and ta-da, I have these wonderful powers and everything's good. It's no, there's an adaptation period. There are difficulties to deal with. He has to learn how to control it, how to hone his senses. He has to learn how to deal with this. It's not just perfectly simple, and of course you can move from one planet to the other and there's no problem at all, all of that really made it so much more real and nuanced to me. I loved that, and that just really, it made me emotionally connect with Clark even more. It was like, oh yes, of course, watching him learn how to deal with that and learn how to deal with his own body on this planet, is an extra layer that I never expected, but was really glad to have. So I really love the realistic version of it. And then the whole idea that, okay, well, he's from another planet, and he's got these powers because he's here, but oh, look, when he flies, the power behind it like cracks the cement underneath him. Like, I mean, of course it does, and we read the post a little while ago where they talked about like how Kryptonians on Earth are like just big and have so much power, and everything they do is about power and and then Wonder Woman moves in a completely different way because she's from a different place, and I loved how unique they're getting with each one of them. That their powers and where they're from makes a difference in how they do things. They're not all just big, powerful crazies, or they're not all just amazingly graceful and strong. They all have their own way of doing things, and the fact that like he takes off and you can hear the sound, the crack, that you can watch the air be disturbed, and all of that is just really, really cool. And so that also just, I don't know, that was a layer I didn't expect either, and I loved it.
Yeah, and that's another like subtle thing, like especially if you look at like whenever Clark uses his heat vision, and you see that like he has to like close his eyes and kind of like recover for a second, because it looks like it's actually like a physically kind of painful thing for him to do, whether he has to do it or not. Like in Batman vs Superman and Man of Steel, anytime he does it, he needs a second to recover, and even with in one of his fights with Zod and Man of Steel, when he used the heat vision, that second it takes to recover, Zod uses that against him.
Exactly. There are honest to goodness repercussions for everything. You can totally wear a cape. That's fine. Wear a cape, but it might count against you in a fight. Just so you know, like both times, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. The cape wearing hero had a moment of culpability there, where they were more vulnerable because they were wearing a cape. Thank you. That makes it very, very real. Heck yeah, they're going to use that as a possible, grabbing point or a way to manipulate your movement, if they can get a hold of it. Yes, capes come with a cost, so you got to really think about that. I really, really enjoyed that. And there was just so much to everything that Zach has done. I couldn't believe how, like, I came home after seeing it the first time, like we left, and I was like, that was really good. And then we went to sleep because it was a really late showing. And I woke up the next day and it was like, I want to see that again. I'm going to go find all the trailers. I'm going to go scour the internet. What's going on? And then it was like, what do you mean people don't like it? What? How could you not like it? Oh my gosh. I spent weeks just, perusing and trying to find everything I could about it because I hadn't paid attention to any of the promo coming in. And so, I mean, it sucked me in that fast, and then I was a goner. So,
and another thing I want to bring up too is like a criticism of Batman vs Superman, in that Superman was kind of like shafted in Batman vs Superman just to prop up Batman. But I think if you really take a good look at the story, it's more of I honestly think that it's a Man of Steel sequel featuring Batman.
Yeah,
because it's other than going to the Batcave and Wayne Manor and a couple of shots in Gotham, like most of it takes place within Metropolis and within Superman's world. And so especially when it starts out with like the death of the Waynes and stuff like that. I think it's pretty much from start to finish. It's more of Clark's story, and the fact that Bruce is kind of like for the most part like an antagonist throughout most of the movie. And it's the whole theme of the world coming against Superman, and again, all he's trying to do is the right thing. And you have all these news outlets and television personalities criticizing him and doing this and that, and thinking that he had something to do with the explosion at the Capitol building. Again, showing us that the world is, even 2 years into him being Superman, still doesn't trust him. And that's what I get. I just watching Batman vs Superman. I think sometimes even more of a nuanced performance from Henry, because there's so many scenes where he doesn't speak, and I think those scenes are some of the most powerful because you don't necessarily need, and much like what Katie brings up in our previous commentaries of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, is that some of the most powerful scenes are the ones where he doesn't speak, and it goes to show, I think, how much of a great actor Henry is, especially in this role. Yes.
And Zach very much is a visual storyteller, and so very often where you would expect to get a dialogue line or something to kind of give you the gist of that scene. He doesn't do that. He will give you the picture, and then he will let you interpret it, which means you have to be paying attention. It's not a simple thing of just letting the dialogue give it to you.
Yep.
And Henry's acting style, or maybe it's just the way he's directed by Zach. I haven't really seen Henry in a whole lot of other stuff. I know he's been on other things, but except for Man from U.N.C.L.E., which is fabulous. But everything about the way Clark is in the movie is that way. You need to be paying attention to his facial expressions, his body language, his everything that he does, because often the stuff that normally in a show would spoon feed you a line from him right there, that's probably not something people would say in normal life, but they have to get the idea across, is not there, because he's gone at it really realistically. And I can't remember who it is, but somebody on Tumblr, my favorite, her tagline is engage or you lose out, and it's true. Because if you don't engage, if you don't sit down and truly engage in the film and pay attention, you're going to miss things. You can't sit down and just halfway be present and expect it all to be given to you, which is typical of today's films. That's what normally happens. So I can see how people are stuck in that mode of thinking that's, what they're going to get. But, I mean, with Zach's movies, it's just never that simple, ever. So you cannot go in halfway and expect it all to be just given to you, spoon-fed to you, and then you can walk away and feel fulfilled. You've got to be paying attention, or honestly, don't bother.
And and that's another, I think, again, like you said, like movies today have almost like tricked audiences and thinking that like you don't need to pay attention to have a good time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, obviously there are like fun popcorn movies, like real, like there's no like real plot that you're just kind of like following along because you just want to have a fun time at the movies. But like,
yep.
That's why I brought this up before. Zach expects more from his audience, and that he thinks they're smarter than they are. Yeah. You go ahead.
I think that was Lily.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I can appreciate that he treats his audience intellectually,
Yes. That's one of the things I really respect, and it makes me happy because it's like, oh, sweet, here's something I can really dig into and watch like 87 times and still get something new every time. This is great, Like, I love doing that kind of thing. So, yeah. Anyway, continue on, Nick.
No, yeah. So like, and when people say like, I absolutely hate the comparison of Zack Snyder and Michael Bay. It's like
wow.
That is.
Where'd you come up with that, guys?
That's one of the laziest comparisons. Because first of all, just because Zack Snyder he directs action well does not mean he's in any way similar to Michael Bay. Michael Bay is a sexist. For what we've seen from the Transformers movies, he doesn't even really care for story. He just likes big explosions and product placement. Where Zack again expects more from his audience, and he wants his audience to walk out having a conversation about the movie because they're thinking more about it. Whether you love or hate Man of Steel, that movie ends with you having a conversation of, okay, why would Superman have to kill Zod?
Yes.
And in Batman vs Superman,
we're still talking about this. It's been 4 years.
4 years later, you're still talking about it. And you walk out of Batman vs Superman, and you see the effect of Superman on Bruce, and that what made Batman get to that point where he felt like he had to keep killing. And Superman's changed his whole view of the world and of life, because Batman, of course, as far as we know, wasn't a killer in the past, but certain things happened in his life, as we so far have come to know from the little subtle story points of obviously the death of Robin and the events of Man of Steel, and that Bruce has gotten to this point, and you walk out of the movie wondering, you want more of what happened to this Batman that made him a killer and want to kill Superman without even really knowing much about him.
Yep.
And that's what I think. Zach, I hate when he's criticized for he doesn't know, he's just like Michael Bay, and there's nothing to his movies. They're just visually.
He hates Superman. That one made me laugh really hard. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he hates Superman. Come on, guys, give it a little bit of thought before you mouth off.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know. And it's funny because, like, I'll admit, like, before I saw Man of Steel, and when I first saw the announcement of Zack Snyder coming in to direct Man of Steel, I'm like, huh, because this was, like, in between, like, the production of, like, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, and, like, Christopher Nolan still had a heavy hand in what was going to be establishing the rest of the DC movies, at least at that point.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us assumed, oh, Christopher Nolan's probably going to end up directing the next Superman movie because he did so well with the Dark Knight movies. And then Zack Snyder's announced, and I'm like, okay, because at that point I had seen Watchmen. I'd seen it a couple times on TV. And, of course, I was like, maybe like 14, 15 at the time, so I didn't necessarily think too deeply about Watchmen. I watched it from start to finish, and I'm like, first of all, that's a long movie, even without the director's cut.
Yeah.
And then, I was trying to like, wow, that was actually a really dark superhero movie. But then, of course, because I hadn't read like the graphic novel or anything like that up to that point, so I didn't really know how dark of a story that really was. And then so I hear him directing Man of Steel, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because I know he directed action really well in Watchmen. So I'm like, okay, I mean, I know we'll get some good action at least. Like I didn't go in thinking like, oh, Zack Snyder sucks as a director, so why should I look forward to this? You know, like I never went in with that mentality. And with most movies, I try to go in with an open mind, at least. Like, especially if
you really need to.
Yeah, and especially with Superman's a character that I love. That like you know what, like I'm willing to give it a shot. Like if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least like I'm gonna go in at least like saying, you know what, I'm not gonna have any preconceived notions about what I think this movie should be. I'm just gonna walk in and see what the director has to offer, and if I like it, I like it. And if I don't, I don't. And that's fine. And I think so many people walk in with the mentality of, I think this movie needs to be like this, or like, people, like especially when people walk out of like early screenings of Wonder Woman, and then like a lot of fans and stuff were like, oh, is it better than The Dark Knight? Why does it have to be better than The Dark Knight to be considered good?
I was going to say that. What? It's a Wonder Woman movie. It has nothing to do with The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
so just tell us what that movie was about. Yeah, why are you comparing? That's weird.
Yeah, and that's also like an unfortunate thing to come out of the Dark Knight movies, is that like all these DC movies are held up to such a high standard that for some people, like if they don't reach that, then the movies are awful. Like just,
and that's unfortunate. You know.
And another unfortunate thing too is a lot of people went into Batman vs Superman. Like I'm still not. I still wanted Christian Bale as Batman. Why couldn't Christian Bale be back as Batman? Why is Ben Affleck Batman? Like, a lot of people didn't understand that this is granted, it's fairly soon after the Dark Knight movies, but this is another new interpretation of Batman, and you just have to accept that. You can't walk in being like, I'm upset that Christian Bale is no longer Batman, so no matter what Ben Affleck does, I'm not gonna like it. Like,
well, they cast Ben, and I was like, huh, okay. They cast Ben. Well, that's cool. I'll wait and see what happens. It's just pretty much what I do every time, And the whole world freaked out. And the world, it was over, stuff like that. But, even Joss Whedon was like, no, I think he can do it. He's got the chin and everything. And I was like, see, we'll just wait and see. We'll just wait and see. And my husband loves the Dark Knight trilogy. I mean, and so do I. But he loves it. Like, and he's a Batman man. That's his hero. And so, like, he's like, oh, man, I guess too bad it's not Christian. I'm like, but he said he was done, and that's fair. He needs to move on to other stuff. He's like, yeah. So we go in and see this. We sit down, and I'm like, holy crap, Batfleck is my Batman forever now. Holy crap. Like, no offense to Christian, but he was out. It was like, holy crap, look at this guy, So I was impressed. I walk out, and I turn to my husband, and I go, what did you think of Batman? And he goes, it's wild because it's not Christian Bale, but I look at him and I can picture him as the same Batman from the Dark Knight trilogy just 20 years in. And I was like, see, and he goes, yeah, it works for me. And so, I don't know. That was like the most, again, 360-degree developed, nuanced, felt like a real person Batman I'd ever seen. And I liked the Christian Bale version, like he was just fine for me because I didn't know any better and I don't read the comics. But then this one was like an improvement on that. I was like, my goodness, like Batfleck is my Batman because I've just never seen one so well developed, so fully developed into a real person. I just, wow. So, and coming off of that, I will say one thing, like both. Like my husband, he goes with me to these movies, and stuff like that. But even he walked out, he is not quite as obsessive as me, not quite as analytical as me, and he's very much like, I'm going to sit and watch a movie, you know, and it's totally cool. But he engages enough. He walked out and was honestly confused that people didn't seem to get the point of Batman v Superman. And then he was honestly confused as why people didn't like it. And so, you know, when they turn and say, you know, only you diehards like it, you know, because you're making yourself stuff. No, it's not true. You know, then I turn around and take my mother, my beautiful, wonderful mother, who gets me, and I'm like, you know, I'm the age I am, you know, and I'm like, well, you come see Batman v Superman with me. Nobody else seems to like it. She's like, yeah, sure. And we watched this movie, and at the end, she turns to me and she's like, we're getting more, right? They're making more of these? You know, I'm like, yes, they are.
Awesome.
You know, we're getting Wonder Woman next year. Well, then she comes to visit me now. She's here right now. And I'm like, we gotta go see Wonder Woman, you know, and she's like, yeah, guess what? I already saw it. I'm like, holy crap. Have you go to see superhero in the theater? She does not, but she was like, no, I had to go see that one. And she sat down, and Batman v Superman and Man of Steel were what did it for her. Sat down and watched it in the theater, and then comes over, and I'm like, well, you want to go see it again? She's like, oh yeah, you know, so we're going today. Like,
and that's awesome.
These movies speak to people, and they
really
speak
do.
to more than just the DC fanatic.
Right.
Or movies, and just, you know, there are people they're to movies and see them as things of beauty. So, or you have to admit that, oh, no, that's not the case. You know, there are many people out there who truly enjoy them for what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, Katie. Like your mic was like cutting in and out there that entire little bit there.
Sorry,
that's like a whole seems to be a problem. I'm sorry.
Going. Shut up, Mike.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. And it's funny because we're talking about like the Dark Knight and like the whole effect on, you know, the movies and stuff. It's funny because in the last few days, since we moved into our apartments and before we had Wi-Fi, my fiance and I were just trying to find stuff to kill time since we didn't have internet. And we're like, well, no, we had my PS3 hooked up and I have the Dark Knight trilogy all on Blu-ray. And I'm like, and we're like, you know, let's just watch all the Dark Knight movies. And so far, we've rewatched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And as much as I love those movies, that interpretation of Batman, it's like looking back, you know, like post Batman v Superman, it's hard for me to look at that guy and be like, you know, that's Batman to me, because Christian Bale's Batman, and it's not his fault. It's just that Batman, like basically from day one, he was like almost like looking to already give up being Batman just for that girl Rachel, and that's problematic because like Batman's more than just like it's it's Batman's more or less of who Bruce really is. And then they mentioned that in Batman Begins, and then in The Dark Knight, he's like ready to just give it up, and he's ready to just like let someone else come in and just. Granted, it's for good reasons, but it bothers me. Like again, The Dark Knight is a great movie, but it's hard for me to like say, oh, the guy, like this version of Batman who was all ready to give up pretty much at the beginning of the second movie. Like, it's hard for me to see that as my Batman. Whereas, like, Bruce Wayne, like in Batman vs. Superman, despite everything he's been through, still is out there as Batman. Like, no
yeah.
Like, no, yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I'm a big Batman fan, so that kind of bothered me too, because I was like, he wouldn't just give up like that. So when I came in and saw Ben Affleck, I was just blown away. I was like, wow, I can't see anybody being Batman now, because he completely ruined it for everybody else. To me, anyway.
No, yeah. And again, I'm not like discrediting like Christian Bale or anything.
Yeah.
Like for me, one of the things I enjoyed most about the Dark Knight movies was the fact that it gave us, again, like a realistic interpretation of what a Batman would look like in this world. It is my problem with those is the fact that we got a Batman who was ready to give it all up for a girl, and in the end, that girl didn't even want him. And then after all that, first of all, he was barely Batman for like a little over a year, gives it up for 8 years, and then in The Dark Knight Rises, he's barely back for like a second, and then all that stuff happens, and But again, I'm not like discrediting those movies or like bash those movies. It's just, for me, it's hard to look back on those and say that's my Batman, because to me, like, a Batman wouldn't just give it all up for a girl. Like, look at the comics, like Batman wouldn't like, oh, I'm giving up being Batman for you, Catwoman. Like, no, like
He would not do that.
Yeah, like he would continue to be Batman, or pass on his mantle to one of the Robins or someone who feels like it's worth it. Like in The Dark Knight, granted he kind of thought he was passing it on to Harvey Dent, but like to me it's I don't know, like who Batman really is. I don't think would do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he would go in like looking for an excuse to give up.
Yeah. At its core, the Dark Knight trilogy, if you look at it, is truly a story about a man trying to come to terms with his life, and Batman becomes kind of the vehicle to do that, and that's Fred's talk about, hoping that he would never come back and that he would find happiness somewhere and just, settle down and be at peace, is really, that's the core of that entire film trilogy. And it's in itself, it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful interpretation. Yeah. But I agree that at its essence, it doesn't feel like Batman to me anymore, because then I come in to Batman v Superman. He's been doing this for 20 years. He has lost at least one sidekick. He has seen serious hardship and difficulty, but he can't not do it. He can't back off. He can't let it go. He's like at this point, the Bat is starting to devour him. Bruce Wayne is becoming less and less of who he is, and he's becoming more Batman because this is the only way he can deal with the
and deal with his pain
world, and that it struck me as more true. That he's never truly going to come to peace, and the way he deals with it is to immerse himself in this character, and he is becoming Batman through and through. It's not a persona he puts on anymore. And that was really awesome to see. It was so beautiful in so many different ways, and the symbolism behind all that. I could go on forever. And so then to see him be afraid of someone else's power and truly see him as a threat and think that this is what he needs to do. This is the mark he's going to leave, his legacy, to take care of this threat that will eventually go bad, because everybody does. And then that will be his piece. That will be his thing, that he will leave his mark on the world, the good that he will do. And then to come to realize that he's gone too far, this is not what it is presented as, and that he is in fact the villain, and to turn around and become inspired by that same person he wanted to kill, and then go, okay, now I've found a new purpose, and it's not about Gotham anymore, it's about the world. Let's find these other guys, let's make sure we're ready, let's do this. And it's a much more, again, hopeful and beautiful and uplooking mission, and he's not staring death in the face anymore thinking, what's my legacy I'm going to leave? It's, no, I need to keep going because the world needs us, and we got to start preparing now. And it's all inspired by Superman. What a beautiful story. And that, to me, I'm like, well, that's just Batman through and through. He lost his way a little bit, but now he's coming back, and he's always going to be Batman. He can't not do it. But now he's found a better, more uplifting way to do it, and that is such a thing of beauty. I don't get why people say these movies are hopeless and dark. Really? You don't see that? It's wild to me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and I just, again, I can't just thank Zack enough for giving us such layered characters. And well, you would think, like, if you go back, like 15, 20 years and you hear a movie called Batman versus Superman, you're going to be like, okay, there's not going to be much to that movie, it's going to be superheroes fighting, but Zack made it so much more than that. Like, he took these, comic book characters and made them, I think, more than just comic book superheroes. He made them relatable, he made them, he just made them flawed. He made, like, the way he gave us, these interpretations of these superheroes. And granted, they are darker versions of the characters we've come to know from the comics, but darker to me, at least, doesn't necessarily mean bad. It gives us, again, I'll admit, the first time I saw Batman vs Superman and seeing Batman kill was I was a little taken aback, because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, okay.
But when, by the end of the movie, you see that, you see kind of why he got that low, and the fact that Superman has kind of been the crux of the DCEU, because his actions have had ripple effects pretty much on the entire DC universe of the DCEU. Like Superman And his sacrifice inspired Batman. Superman's sacrifice and his death led to the creation of the Suicide Squad. Superman and his actions in trying to stop Doomsday kind of brought Wonder Woman back into the fold. You know, so Superman, and the fact that Superman's effect on the world has had serious weight to it, and I'm so happy that, you know, Superman being the first superhero ever, and especially of the DC universe, the fact that Zack has kind of like brought that into the movie universe, and granted he's not the first hero of this universe. We come to find out the kind of Wonder Woman is, but he is kind of like the key to this universe, and that everything's been kind of brought together because of him. Justice League is going to be brought together because of Superman. The Suicide Squad was created because of him, and all these things were because of him. And I don't think you would have gotten that with many other filmmakers. They would have just had their own standalone movie, and then have it lead up to a Justice League movie, and have things not necessarily tie into one another. But with Zack, I think, like, Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League, I think are going to wind up being a great film trilogy, because, like, and you wouldn't even necessarily think so, but they're more, like, Superman is the heart of these stories, and I'm so glad that Zack's emphasized that.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much because it's just such a beautiful thing, and everything comes back to him, which is why, honestly, still to this day, when Zack released that tiny behind-the-scenes footage and stuff like that, and we're all watching it, and it's all awesome and fabulous, and I'm so excited, and then it zips past, and I'm like, oh, wait, that was Henry, and he was in a suit! You know, like, I mean, wait, come back, Superman! You know, so, yeah. I was really excited that, you know, he's the center of the universe, you know, and yet he's not going to be gone forever, so.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we all know that he's going to come back, but it's still, like, as a fan, like, you hate to see... Yeah, you hate to see a guy who's already gone through so much in his life have to, you know, die in order for the world to kind of see him as he really is.
Yeah. Well, you know, honestly, this world, I think that's the funny thing. I've argued with people about this. You know, he shouldn't have to die in his second movie. There's no reason to kill him. You know, he shouldn't have to die before the world realizes, you know, what he blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but guys, sadly, this is the world that we live in. And that is what Zack is trying to portray. So, sadly, yeah, he might have to do that. He might actually have to sacrifice himself for the world for us to go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe he was good. You know, I'm sorry, but humans are kind of stupid sometimes, and that's entirely possible. And so it's a lovely thing for me that in doing that, he finally won the world over and got them to see him for who he really is. But we don't have to leave it there. You know, now he can come back and truly see, you know, the effects of that the world has accepted him, you know, and that in his honor, you know, Bruce is putting together the Justice League, stuff like that, and he can kind of take his place in that as the true version of Superman everybody knows and loves, that the world accepts, you know, as their hero, and go from there, you know. But I don't deny the struggle it would take in this world for him to get there. And so it really, I don't know, looking at the whole storyline, it was like, holy crap, Zack, of course it would happen that way. That is beautiful. I love the way they took the storyline.
Me too.
This has made me very, very happy.
Yeah, and again, of course, the people criticizing, oh, you shouldn't have killed off Superman so early, and blah, blah, blah. And people are like, oh, well, we shouldn't have to kill Superman just to get to the Superman that we know from the comics. But I think it makes the story so much more meaningful by doing it like this, because otherwise, you know, what event would change the world's opinion of Superman and bring them all together to believe in this hero? You know, like,
I was gonna say Metropolis didn't, Zod didn't. You know, that's what kills me. He defends this entire planet against his own people. You know, has to get rid of them, put them in the Phantom Zone. You know, is defending, you know, military and civilians and stuff like that.
And that wasn't enough.
And then has to kill the last one of his own people to ensure that everybody else is safe. But that wasn't good enough. So you're right. What exactly would it take? Let me think here. Possibly sacrificing himself. Yeah, that's probably gonna do it. So.
And that's why I can't wait to see Clark's return in Justice League, and to see like what Bruce has done to honor him. And I think Clark's gonna be so happy to see what Bruce has done in his name and bringing these people together to save the world. I think Clark's gonna finally feel accomplished, and that he has made an impact on the world. You know.
Yep. Yep, I think so too. I am stoked. I cannot wait. I'm just, and I feel greedy because I'm like, I know we just got Wonder Woman. Like, the month isn't even over yet. Wonder Woman came out. And I'm going to see it for the third time, and I love it. So no offense against that movie at all. Go see it, you know. But I'm like, come on, man, come on. I need the Justice League. Oh, God, I need it right now. Give it to me. Give it to me. I'm so greedy. Yeah, but I can't wait, you know. Yeah. I can't wait for another Zack movie. For the Justice League in its entirety. I cannot wait to be introduced to the Flash. I've already talked about, and Cyborg. I missed him last time. I've already adopted him too. He's already my kid, you know. And I'm like, come on, man. I cannot wait to be introduced to these new characters and then be reintroduced to the other ones. I'm like, I get more Wonder Woman, I get more Batman. Bring me my Superman. You know, I'm here for all of this, so I'm so excited.
One thing I want to bring up, and of course this happened like right after we recorded last week, you know, the news of Danny Elfman replacing Junkie XL for Justice League. I know this doesn't necessarily have nothing to do with Superman necessarily, but I was looking forward to Junkie, because Junkie would have kept Hans' themes, you know, from Man of Steel and stuff.
And he would have kept his overall kind of style, so to speak, you know, like he called Hans Zimmer his mentor, like, you know, they have a similar way of doing things.
Yeah.
So
now, like, with Danny Elfman, and I think I've kind of brought it up before as well, and it's I don't think Danny Elfman's a bad composer at all. I think he's great. He's given us a lot of great film scores, but I don't think his style fits the DCEU, and I worry that we're going to get a score for Justice League that does not include Wonder Woman's theme or Superman's theme or Batman's theme, that we're just going to get this kind of like poppy superhero theme that is ultimately forgettable, because like they brought in Danny Elfman to do some additional scoring for Age of Ultron. Does anyone remember the score for Age of Ultron?
Not even a little.
Yeah,
you know, I know. That's what sucks. So I agree. I feel bad because I don't want to bash the guy. He's perfectly fine for a composer. But the DCEU, for me, has always had such amazing musical, aspects to it. Yep. And it's been very much a strong part of the DCEU's identity. Yep. And I don't want to see that lost because they got rid of the guy who trained under Hans Zimmer and was going to do it, and brought in somebody who does kind of, no offense to Marvel, but the Marvel way of doing it, having it very subversive, very much in the background, and very, in the end, forgettable. And I don't want that, because it's always been a really defining point. They gave the characters their own identity, their own themes. It's got a specific style to it, and I don't want to see that go away, especially for Justice League. So that worried me more than the news that Joss was finishing up for Zack, because truly, like, Zack had it like probably 90% done. And then Joss is just finishing up some of the last parts. It's still going to be Zack's film as far as I'm concerned, but this bothers me because music has always been a very large part of the experience for me, and I worry. I do. Yeah, that was a punch in the gut. I was like, we're in safe hands, and then we get that news, and I was like, I
wouldn't even have minded bringing in, like, Wonder Woman's composer, or even, like, Suicide Squad's composer, because at least they would be able to reincorporate some of those themes, because they've worked on DC films previously. I mean, of course, Danny Elfman did like the original Batman theme back in for Tim Burton,
and that had good music, you know. But
and again,
they already
he's
have
a fine
established
composer.
Themes.
I wanted if Danny can keep those original themes and build on those, then I'm happy. Then that's what I want. Like, then I take back any worry I had. But before we hear that, I do worry that we're not gonna get those same themes that we all came to love so much. Because even for critics of the DCEU, a lot of people praise the scores from Hans and Junkie XL. You know, and if you lose that, then I think you kind of lose a bit of the character that these movies have had. Because again, like from the beautiful scores of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, I think Wonder Woman's great score. Like, each movie has its own like musical identity, and I don't want just to fall into the same like generic superhero team up category, at least musically, that other films have had. And I worry in that aspect, because like maybe it was just a scheduling thing that Junkie couldn't do the reshoots because of all this stuff going on, or because he's doing another movie or whatever.
I guess it's possible.
I don't worry. I just wanted at least with Justice League to finish off what Zack and I would say Hans and Junkie started in Man of Steel, and keeping that musical identity there. And
Yep.
and I want, and first of all, more than anything, I want to hear Superman's theme when he comes back.
Yep.
Oh, definitely.
Yep. Well, and I admit, I want to hear Wonder Woman's theme when she's there.
Me too.
It's her theme. Yeah. It's been there since Batman v Superman, since her first appearance, and I'm so happy and proud. Rupert Gregson Williams did a wonderful job of keeping that theme and integrating it into the Wonder Woman movie.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you're right. We didn't hear it tons and tons, but we heard it enough, and we heard it when it was Diana the Warrior. You know, it was great, and it was so nice because it was comfortable. And oh yeah, here comes the Wonder Woman theme. And I want that, you know. I want that. I want Superman's theme. You know, I even would like Batman's theme back. You know, like if he can keep the same themes, I agree. I would be okay. But I don't know what he's doing, and so I sit in the background and worry because that's what I do. But it's important now. It's established. That is their identity, and you can't now just come in and reinvent the wheel. I don't think. You know, not at this stage in the game. So. All I want is one last movie that is fully Zach's vision, please. That's all I want. Just one more, you know, to complete the perfect storytelling that it has been up to this point, you know, and get up with a full-fledged Justice League. Try not to obsess as much, but that's
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just, again, not to criticize Danny, we've all come to love and appreciate Junkie and Han so much, and what they've done. That it's obviously we're a little spoiled and we just want what we're used to, but again we're not worried because Danny's a bad composer. We want the same kind of style and tone kept between the movies, and when you bring in a composer like Danny Elfman, who's known for like more like lighthearted and kind of poppy musical compositions, it's kind of clashing against what the DCEU has established. So it's again not a bash against him. It's a matter of fit, and I don't think he's the best
change
fit.
In style. Yeah. You know. Yep.
Like maybe if he were to do agree. Like a Flash movie or something along those lines, or like maybe like a Suicide Squad 2 or something that is where like a score like his would fit a little more. That's okay. But with Justice League, you have so many already established themes, I don't want those to be gone. Like, he can establish his own themes for other characters, and that's fine in standalone movies or wherever it may be. But I'm just afraid of losing the great and amazing themes we've already established. And I worry. Agree. I worry about that.
Yep, I want the continuity there. I really do.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've heard like some other people talking about it in the last week. And again, even people who criticize, you know, the DCEU, even they worry a little bit that like, because even though they may not have loved the movies, that like they want those scores still there and those themes still there, and so many people, and like I told this story before of like last year when I was taking a film course, and on one of the first days we were like trying to get to know each other and like, going around the room and talking about the things we're into. A guy came out and said, you know, like I love film scores, I'm a film junkie, and I love like right now I'm listening to the Man of Steel score and it's amazing, and I'm like, yes, like.
Best friend, you're my best friend now.
Yeah.
I've heard that from many people, and it is true though. It's beautiful music.
Yeah, and if Danny Elfman comes in and ruin that score, I'll go in and I'll rescore the entire movie myself on GarageBand. Like I will.
You know what? We'll just go ahead and take all the Man of Steel and all the Batman v Superman and kind of remix it up, and then just lay it in underneath. You're right. I think that's fine.
Then we can all pitch in to hire Junkie XL to redo it.
There we go. Okay, I'm done with that.
like just do it for our Blu-rays, so that way at least we can die happy.
Yes, see, that's all I want.
Yeah, but so those are just my thoughts on that little bit of because obviously that news dropped right after we recorded last week. And I just wanted to
and it's news, so it applies.
Yeah, but other than that, I am still looking forward to Justice League, and again, I'm not worried about Josh's reshoots or what he's been doing. Again, my only trepidation is the replacement of Junkie XL with Danny Elfman. But I still, like, from what we've heard, from WB and even subtly from Joss, that this is still very much going to be Zach's movie. And and that's why, like, I don't buy into all these rumors saying, oh, like, Joss is, like, reshooting 100 pages worth of script. And, like, first of all, that's way too that's most of the movie right there. And I would imagine that WB is not willing to spend that much money on reshoots on a movie like this where it was already, like, principal photography was already done. So there's no point.
This is what kills me. They were already perfectly happy with Zach's version.
Yeah.
happy enough that they were willing to push back the release date on a major tentpole film, in order to give him time to grieve and then come back and finish it. Obviously, they're perfectly happy with what Zack is doing. And it was Zack who said, no, I don't want to do that to people. I don't want to do that to the fans. So how about we do this? Okay, that's fine. So, yeah, I agree. There's no way that it's now, okay, good, he's gone. Just go ahead and redo the entire frickin' film from the top. And also, don't forget to put Wonder Woman in the very forefront because she has been all along anyway. But now that the movie's successful, we got to really make sure she's up there. I mean,
and that's why all these John Berg, one of the producers, came out and said, we aren't changing Justice League, or Justice League isn't changed because of the success of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman already had a major part in the movie. That's not changing.
Yeah, and that's what has never changed. This is what kills me. When we see her, what do we see her? In front, with two guys behind her. We've been making jokes about Diana and her backup band. She's been front and center this whole time.
Since Batman vs. Superman. In Batman vs. Superman, a movie that was not even her film, or a movie where she barely had any screen time, she was still leading the charge against Doomsday. Yeah, and so she had her own poster. Yeah. She was highly featured in the trailers. In the interviews, she was around. She was in the spotlight. There's no way that they've been pushing her into the background, guys. And if you believe that, obviously you haven't been DC fans long, and you just barely came on board with this film. So go ahead and go backwards, and now see some of the other stuff, and maybe pay attention to the promo and realize that you're wrong. So, they haven't had to change anything because of his success. They're just delighted with the success, and they're still going on, Wow. The rumors that get started are kind of embarrassing sometimes. It's like, oh, you guys, apply real life to that because, oh goodness, come on, man. Bad publicity for the DCEU brings clicks and money to all these sites. And for them, it's like they don't care either way if these rumors are true or not, because it gets them clicks and it gets their site's recognition. And
but that's yellow journalism, and that frustrates me. That's tabloids, basically. That is not true journalism. That's not real. That Lois would be ashamed of you, because that's just doing things for click and for money, and that's not the truth. So go ahead and have a little bit of integrity and report what's real, please.
Yeah, and that's what that bogus article that came out the other day about Gal Gadot's wage compared to Henry Cavill's, and I'm like, what?
Oh yeah.
And then they came out and changed it, and it's that was
my favorite. Was in half of the comments, even those people are like, wait, does that include the extras and stuff like that? Because that would make a difference. Even regular lay people are going, that's not how that works. Are you looking at two totally different numbers and trying to say they're the same? Oh, look, you are. Come on.
No, and then the site that reported it saying the original report that was reported on, the one that you guys falsely reported on, trying to make it seem like it wasn't even them. And it's like, what?
Guys.
And I think it was BuzzFeed or something like that.
BuzzFeed.
I enjoy BuzzFeed. They have fun articles and stuff, but in terms of really you have people on your staff who aren't even first of all, don't have incredible sources. I just hate okay, rumors are rumors. If you have at least sources, or at least somewhat credible sources, then okay, fine, publish your dang article, whatever. But if you're just publishing articles with no real basis, with no clear origin, with no real truth to it, then what's the point of posting a dang article?
Exactly. Well, and if you haven't done your work,
gone these days, I feel like.
If you haven't done your homework, if you haven't actually applied rational thought, anybody who came up with that figure should have said, okay, I need to look further into this and see what exactly this all entails, and not just immediately go online with an inflammatory article about how she's getting shafted because she's a woman. If that's true, report it. But you got to really do your research, and even some research would have shown you, oh, wait, okay, this figure is after for Henry and hers is before. Okay, that's legit. It's not that hard, and that's part of journalism, is that you're supposed to be doing your research and not going off half-cocked because you have something that sounds sensational. And Lois would be ashamed. That's all I can say. And so would Iris.
Another great aspect of this interpretation of Lois Lane that I would love to bring up, this I think is actually the most accurate portrayal of Lois Lane, because, and granted, I love the Smallville version, don't get me wrong, and Margot Kidder was fine, but I feel like this is the one version of Lois that, honestly, if it wasn't for her, Like, first of all, Jarrell trusted her with the information of how to stop Zod and Man of Steel.
Yep.
Lois, on her own, figured out what Lex was doing on her own.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
That's why I don't get people call her, just call it like a damsel in distress. Like, well, then you're really not paying attention to Lois in the movie.
Not at all. I cannot believe it's embarrassing. It's like, you guys, really? You just want to sit there and complain about that, and you're not actually looking at the story? I mean, you're right. Like, how often do we actually get the journalist romantic interest getting to do journalism on the screen time? And she did it twice, because she also did it heavily in Man of Steel. She tracked down Clark Kent and figured out who he was. You know, like, but okay, she's just a damsel in distress because she gets saved because she has no fear and runs into dangerous situations, which has been her character since the very start. You know, but, okay. Really? That's all you can see? You're looking at it through some kind of weird lenses that I don't have, because that's not what I see. And I agree. I love her portrayal of Lois Lane. And I'm so delighted that they have given her so much emphasis in the script. They have really made her present and make a difference in the plot. And she gets to show off her journalism skills and her commitment to truth. And, I mean, that is so awesome, because even now, that's part of why I'm frustrated with the Flash TV show, is because they keep not giving that to Iris, and they've got 22 episodes a season to do that, even once, and they just don't. So, yeah, we get it once, and that's so nice to see in a movie where they don't have 22 episodes and they have like 2.5 hours max. They're like, you know what, we're gonna make sure that she does journalism, and she really. Thank you so much. Like that, I cannot tell them how much that means to me.
Yeah, and then that's sometimes that's one of the things that bothers me about like Tumblr and stuff. Like Tumblr is obviously so feminist and stuff, but yet they take a look at Lois Lane and they're like, oh, she's just a damsel in distress. She doesn't count as a feminist character. Really?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Watching the same movie.
Yeah, like do you not see the fact that like she's pretty much like while all the men were busy fighting each other, like she was the one figuring out what's really going on. Really? Like
Yep.
I don't get it. I don't know if it's maybe the fact that like Amy Adams is an older actress, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, or they just don't like Lois Lane. I don't know.
This is why I just sit back and go, humans are stupid. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it.
Too, but not about this. So.
Yeah, but for me, I mean, again, I don't care what anyone says, whether she's damsel in distress or whatever. I love Amy Adams as Lois Lane, and it's funny because like my first time walking out of Man of Steel, I'm like the first time I'll admit, like I was like, okay, I saw a little too much of Amy Adams and not enough of Lois Lane, but rewatching the movie, I'm like, oh my god, like I was wrong. Like she embodies who Lois Lane is, and the fact that like. Yeah. In this version, she wasn't dumb enough to fall for the glasses disguise. She figured that out well before he even became Superman. Like, and that's so important because first of all, it makes the relationship even more meaningful. That like now they both share the secret, and it's because again, it makes Lois look dumb if she can't tell the difference between a guy wearing glasses and a guy not wearing glasses. You know, like.
Yeah, the guy she works with, yeah.
Like, I understand if it was, like, a coworker who worked in, like, the basement, who she barely ever saw, then, like, okay, fine. But if it's a guy she, like, works with on a daily basis, and who she, like, sits across from, and she still can't tell the difference between these two people and who are the same person, I think, again, it weakens her character. And I don't like that aspect of the character from the comics.
And that's David said when he was writing the script for Man of Steel, was that no matter how they tried to do that, every time they tried, it made Lois look stupid, and they just hated it. So finally said, let's just get rid of that aspect. And light years of improvement. What a beautiful story now. And like their love story moves me more than most superhero love stories, because she found out who he was from the beginning before he was ever Superman and accepted him for who he is. Oh, they're a beautiful couple. Like, I don't understand how people are not moved by them. I don't get it.
And again, like, in that aspect of the comics, even people who love or hate Man of Steel, that aspect of the comics, like, no one's complaining about the fact that they changed that.
Yeah,
because it was
I love that they did it the way they did.
Yeah, it's just, Yeah, because it's hard to do that part of the storyline without making her look dumb. And even like in Smallville, they had her find out his secret. Granted, it was the last season, but there wasn't any glasses to hide his disguise or like whatever. Like she was able to actually figure it out on her own. And it's like it's not like I don't know. Like at first I saw some people complaining about it, but for the most part, people are like, okay, fine, and they get over it. Like, granted, people complain about a lot of other things about those movies, unfortunately. But at least in that aspect, they aren't really complaining about it because it is. Like, we all agree that was a dumb aspect of the comics that we're all kind of glad they got rid of.
Yeah.
Yep. I didn't miss it at all. Not even a little bit. I didn't realize it was gone until I walked out of the movie and my husband mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh, you're right." And then I was like, "Huh? Yeah, I'm not bothered."
Yeah, because it's like,
right, not even a little. So, yep.
Yeah, cause it's funny because I remember before the movie came out and they were doing some like the marketing and stuff where I saw like a clip of, or it was like a behind the scenes thing, and they showed that clip of her going to the Kent farm and confronting Martha, saying she's wanted to know about her son. And this is before the movie, so I'm like, wow, are they really going there? Is she really going to find out who Clark is already? By the time I watched the movie, again, like, it's not that big of a deal, you know? It's...
Yep.
If anything, it goes to show how smart of a character this return of Lois Lane is.
Yep. And the story follows itself just perfectly. We're like, oh, of course, of course she would hunt that down. Of course that would be a new mystery Lois Lane can't let go of, of course. Oh, of course, yeah. And you're right, it all just falls into place and you go, uh-huh, and you don't even question it. So it's really nice.
Yeah. So, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say regarding Superman. I mean, of course, I could talk all day about Superman, but without saying the same things again and again and again. So before we close out here, was there anything you wanted to add, Lily or Katie?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good, except I really do need to send Zach a letter or something and just tell him thank you. And I probably should send Henry one too, because truly, I don't know, their art has made a difference in my life, and that is something they need to hear. So. Yeah,
and again, like not many artists or actors can do that to me. Like with Henry, like he's. Especially, like, he cares about his fans, and he's not one of those celebrities who's, like, he feels like he's bigger than the character. He's a very humble guy, and, like, the kind of actor you would want portraying Superman. And when you look at him, and the fact that he does all this stuff for charity, and seeing his stuff on Instagram and stuff, like, you feel like he's a really genuinely nice guy. And, and it's just, like, that's all you could really want from a guy playing Superman. And I don't care what people say, if he's wooden or whatever. Like, I think he's he's my favorite portrayal of the Superman character, because he gives him so many layers. And granted that's the writing, directing, as well as the acting, but I wouldn't have kind of like fallen in love with this character again if it wasn't for Henry's portrayal of the character. Like, I probably would have enjoyed the movie fine if it was a little different, but for me, like, even as a lifelong Superman fan, I can still find certain interpretations that I don't necessarily enjoy. Like I mentioned earlier with Tyler Hoechlin and his version of Superman on Supergirl, I don't like his portrayal, but I'm not gonna sit there and sit and talk about how much I hate him for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, or whatever. Like I'm not. First of all, I have better things to do with my time than to be negative, and that's why I'd rather do something like this where I could talk about something positively and just to be able to talk amongst fans in a civil manner that's not just like arguing like why I hate this or why we hate that or whatever, but to come together as fans, just talk about the things we enjoy. And that's one of the great things I think Zach has done in establishing the DCEU. He's given us something to talk about for years after the movie is released. And again, not many filmmakers can do that. I mean, granted, filmmakers have done that in the past with many great films, and I think while a lot of the public may not necessarily think so, I think Zach is one of the best modern filmmakers out there, because he's given us what could have been cheesy and over-the-top movies. He gave us so much more than that. And again, not many modern filmmakers today would have given us a superhero movie like Zach has, or even Patty has in Wonder Woman, that they could have been just generic stories, and they're not. They gave us something to talk about, that like they give us something to like we find something in ourselves in these larger than life characters. And I love the DCEU for what it's given us, and again, not many filmmakers or movies can give us that, and I appreciate everything that Zach and Patty and even David have given us in these characters, because it gives us something to talk about, and it gives us kind of hope in humanity a bit, even though they are fictional characters, that they give us something to look for in ourselves.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I agree 100%, and I feel exactly the same.
So I think with that being said, that's probably going to be it at least from me on my end. My creative juices in terms of conversation have kind of run out for the day. So if you guys have any closing thoughts, you guys can go ahead and share them if you guys want.
I love Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, and people can kiss my butt. They don't like it. There, I'm done.
Well said. Well said.
Oh, I love Wonder Woman too.
Please, everyone.
Yeah. All right, so again, I think with that being said, that's going to be it from all of us. Thank you, everyone who's listening, and thank you guys for joining me in this podcast. It's always fun talking to you guys, and you guys, and Katie and Lily and all the other people in our podcast group who we literally spent like all week talking about this stuff. So it's not like the conversation ends here.
Right.
Yeah. And so even for those of you listening on YouTube or wherever you guys are listening to this, feel free to join in the conversation in the comments below, because that's the best thing about what we do, is it's creating conversation, just talking to fans who love this, even discussing civilly with fans who maybe don't like the same things that we do, and just creating a conversation and creating an environment where we can all just talk about the things we love or maybe even dislike in a civil manner, because there's too many jerks and assholes in the world. Just if you want to create a conversation, just be positive and at least be friendly, because that's all we can really ask for. So
let's just respect each other.
Yeah, exactly. It takes no effort to be kind and respectful to one another, and especially with everything going on in the world, just spread a little love.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me and Katie. Where can the people find you online?
I'm Story Tumblr. Nice. I'm Story Advocate on Tumblr. Sorry.
All right, and Lily, where can people find you?
On Tumblr for Lily Loves Comics. So there's that.
Awesome. All right. And then you guys can find me here you can look up Nerdy Nick on Twitter, True Man of Steel on Tumblr. That's where I post a lot of my stuff and maintain conversations with these great people. Also here on my YouTube channel here at Nerdy Nick. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Katie and Lily for participating. I'm already I'm already starting to ramble and stutter. Thank you guys for listening, and
thank you.
I'll talk to you guys soon. And for everyone listening, have a great rest of your day and have a good one.